Hola Chicas! Welcome to 20 Questions With, a podcast in conjunction with Latinitas Magazine. Latinitas Magazine is a strong voice for Latina and POC youth, which is why the host of 20 Questions With are all young Latinas who are looking to gain experience in innovative and creative fields just like you. In each episode, you'll hear from striking individuals who are inspiring today's youth with their passion, motivation, and grit. Today, I'm excited to say that our volunteer writer Angelique Hecarvarria had the opportunity to sit down and ask 20 questions with Maria Hinojosa. Before we get started, here's what you should know about Maria. Mexican-born and U.S.-raised, Hinojosa is the president and founder of Futuro Media. Throughout her career, Hinojosa has anchored for PBS, CBS, WNBC, and CNN. She is currently the anchor and executive producer of a Peabody Award-winning show, Latino USA, a hit PRX public radio show. As the author of 3 books, including her critically acclaimed memoir, Once I Was You, Hinojosa has informed millions about the changing cultural and political landscape in America and abroad. In many ways, Hinojosa is a voice for many communities that are not always heard, including immigrants, the incarcerated, and the LGBTQ+ communities. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Angelique and Maria.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on this episode of 20 Questions With. I'm Angelique Hecarvarria, and I'm here with today's guest, Maria Hinojosa. Thank you, Maria, for joining us today.
Hey, good to be here.
Thank you. Let's get started with the questions. So our questions are quite lighthearted to begin with. So I really wanted to know, what is your favorite part of your career?
My favorite part of my career is anytime when I'm able to be out interviewing people in person, on the street, like for real. That is the thing that makes me the happiest.
And would you be able to describe your typical day for us?
Well, pandemic days are different than what would have been a typical day. But basically what I do is I work out very early in the morning. Usually I'm getting ready to start boxing. So I'll be boxing at 7 o'clock in the morning in the park every day that I possibly can. I come back and early in the morning, I'm usually recording something. There's a good chance I'm recording a show. In the middle of the day, I'm having editorial meetings, a meeting with my team. I have multiple teams. We're developing multiple projects. Often I'll be doing interviews in the middle of the day with people. And then in the evenings, doing yet more events, more lives, And then on Thursdays, I'm a professor, so I teach 2 classes all day. I just finished taking a chunk of time off where I was actually writing every morning because I'm writing this book. And so, and sometimes, like on weekends, there'll be work too. But oftentimes I'm trying to really just at the end of the day, really end and just kind of be with my family, even though I'm with them the entire day because we're all at home together, quarantining. Somewhat typical. Before the pandemic, I would have been on a plane every week going to a different city, talking to different people. Yeah, that's would have been my life.
Yes, you do so many amazing things. And I just learned that you are doing boxing, which I love and I hope to do one day. But I'm not sure if you can also tell us something else that might surprise us about you.
I'm a big nature freak. I mean, I always liked nature, but it's become more, I just really find myself grounded by connecting with nature, by extension, birds, which I've become much more public about on my Instagram and my Twitter. So some people are very surprised about that.
Yes, my family also loves bird watching. We're going to get the best binoculars. We're going to spot the native birds. It's so much fun to do. Does disco maybe something that you do in your free time?
Yeah, what I do in my free time is I like to go out and hike with my daughter when we can, when the weather permits. It's been pretty brutally cold. I like to work out. Like I get joy out of that. I like diving into a phenomenal book or a great series. Right now I'm watching something that's about my community, Harlem. So it's a series about Harlem that I'm really enjoying. I've been at this for a while, so I understand the importance of disconnecting. And so, you might find me just dancing to disco music at any time, something I love to do.
Me too. Also, this is my favorite question because I'm personally a foodie, especially for Latin American food. So I wanted to know, what is your favorite Latin American dish?
Híjole, that's really hard. No, I don't have one. I make an expert guacamole. So even my staff, we had a competition. It's award-winning. I can say that. I mean, I just love guacamole, but I'm like, bueno, pero like right now I've just connected with some Ecuadorians here in Connecticut. And so I'm like getting into what they are eating. The plates are different. I know Peruvian dishes, which I love. So, I mean, pupusas, oh my God. Like a really good, freshly made, oh my God, pupusa. Street tacos, Mexico City style street tacos, I'm down for that. Anything street, quesadillas on the street, anything from the street, which can be dangerous. So I try to limit that. And again, I'm also not out. So yeah, that you could just keep me going for a while on this one.
Yes, especially if you live in the Latinx community. My mom and I would always go get ceviche, arepas, and bananas. So we're missing that right now too. Hopefully soon again. So we have so many iconic people that we know from the past and the present. So I was wondering if you could meet anyone from the past or present, who would it be and why?
It would be Jovita Idar. Jovita Idar was born in El Paso in the late 1800s. She was American citizen of Mexican descent, traveled back and forth, and they had a newspaper in El Paso. And Jovita was my founding mother as a journalist in the United States of America. She fought off the Texas Rangers when they came to shut down her press. Like she helped in the Mexican Revolution. She was like a nurse. She was a teacher. She did incredible things in her life. Her and also Frederick Douglass, who is my founding father as a journalist in the United States. I think I would love to meet the both of them, put the three of us together.
Yes. I recently read his novel and it was so powerful. I cried and I spoke about it with my fellow classmates as well. So he's definitely someone that I would also love to meet. So I was also wondering, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I think myself and the company will have moved into real expansive territory in terms of media. And by that, I mean, will I be making a film, a television series, something dramatic based on real life? So I will have written by then, let's see, probably 2 more books. So I'm excited about that as well.
Yes, I hope that does come true because I would love to read and I love films also. So what is one of your favorite stories that you've covered?
Yeah, you're asking a journalist, right? And so the thing about being a journalist is that when we're living in a time that is so complicated like we are right now, to be Latino or Latina or to be an immigrant or a refugee. So I wish I could say happier things, but I think my favorite work that I've been doing in the last year has been focusing on those communities that are really, really forgotten. Like I went down to the border of Mexico with Guatemala, where people are stuck having to wait, even though they're refugees and they want asylum. I was down on the border with the US and Mexico along the Texas border. And then I was in Mississippi reporting about people who had been deported after being taken from the chicken processing plants where they worked. Most of them Guatemalan, do not speak Spanish as a first language. So I don't know about a favorite story. I think it's the story that I'm really committed to telling.
And throughout your career and covering both, positive and also negative stories, what is one thing you find difficult about journalism?
I think the thing that I find frustrating about journalism, and it's not a problem that I have because I have my own company, but I think it's hard for people when they're starting and they're working for other people and you realize really how little representation there is in terms of Latinos and Latinas specifically. And so that part is hard for me because I think it can be a turnoff for a lot of people. I just hope people don't give up. We need more of us.
Right. And have you faced any challenges to get to this point in your career?
We don't have enough time.
Oh, no.
I mean, there's just been too many challenges. And then you're just like, okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Vamos. So I actually tell this to my students on the days when I'm a college professor. I tell them, I don't want you to think that there's going to be a time when you get to your life where it's like, okay, whew, free coasting. All right, woo, I can just chill out and everything's going to be like water skiing. Like, yeah, I got it. All right, everything is fine. Now, there's always going to be the waves that are coming and the wake is jumping. And then you just have to learn how to ride those waves.
So this also sort of goes in relation to the next question. What advice would you give to a young girl trying to get more experience in the field of journalism?
to consume a lot of journalism first, find out what you like, and then go to those places and try to work in those places. And don't give up. It is very competitive. It is, but you just got to keep trying. And so maybe you have an image of where you want to be, but you have to realize that you have to start slow. And if you don't get that first job, you try again and you keep on trying. And there's something to be said about tenacity and keeping at it. I just worry for a lot of young Latinas that somebody could say something to them that would totally turn them off. And that's where it's like, please don't. There are places like Futuro that exist and more of them, and other places, not just about Latinas, cool places where you can work. And then you'll ultimately, ideally, maybe create your own. So put in the hard work and don't be afraid.
Keep fighting. And when you were younger, what did you envision yourself doing?
I think because I was always a border crosser, because I was growing up in Chicago and we would drive from Chicago into Mexico. So I actually drove through the state of Texas multiple times. I was in the city of Austin when none of the buildings were over 10 stories high, if at that. I think I imagined that I had the capacity to do something internationally. I think the one time that I kind of verbalized was maybe I'd work at the UN. And I'm so glad I didn't, not to poo-poo the UN, but it's also a bureaucracy. And I'm glad I didn't become a bureaucrat. I don't want to be a bureaucrat, never have wanted to be a bureaucrat. So, and then, there was a time when I imagined that I would be an actress, that I really kind of thought that, even though I couldn't imagine being a journalist. I mean, at least I had seen West Side Story and there were Latinas there, well, Rita Moreno. And that dream came true though, which is why you should never, ever, 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 ever give up on your crazy dream. Because when the movie In the Heights comes out, I think it's in June, I'm in it. So you will see me. I just saw the film. I just saw it. It's like amazing. So yeah. So even, that dream that I had, I never gave up. You become friends with people as you get older, and Kiara Alegria Hughes and Lin-Manuel are people who I know. Kiara is a friend. Lin-Manuel, I don't know about a friend. He's busy. But yeah, they know me and they asked me to play this role.
Wow, I love that. Do you also have a favorite place that you visited?
I've got a lot of favorite places. Oh my God. When you said that, when people ask me a question, I really will just respond with the first image that came into mind. And when you asked that question, I thought about Palenque, which is in Chiapas, and where I went as a very little girl, where all of the pyramids were everywhere, still, being kind of excavated, and was able to go in the pyramid and see the tomb, like deep inside the pyramid. You're not allowed to do that anymore. And it always was one of my favorite places in the world because of the mysticism. But, later in life, I was lucky enough to get to Rome, and I love Rome. It's a beautiful city. Havana is extraordinary. Machu Picchu, Bangladesh. I was able to be in Rwanda. So I have a lot. I've been very, very lucky to have been able to travel the world, and I feel so blessed by that.
Yes, the world is so beautiful. You mentioned all these things. I'm like, I get sparked by all of these places. And I also want to know, because one of my dreams is to film a documentary one day. Ever since I was little, I grew up watching documentaries, and I saw that you filmed a documentary. So I was wondering, how has your experience been filming a documentary?
It's one of my favorite things to do. As you're talking, I'm just like, God, wouldn't it be great if we had a crew? And it will happen. I'm in the midst of developing another documentary right now for film. For radio, all of the work that I told you before, that's all documentary work. That's all investigative work. But it's the happiest that I am is when I'm doing that kind of work.
Yes. Oh, that's so reassuring to hear, because I really do dream.
It will take a while. Don't worry. Or maybe you'll hit it. You also don't know. You could decide to make a documentary about something that nobody has thought of. And it's like, it becomes the hottest thing. You don't know, which is why you have to do it. And sometimes, not all documentaries have to be. I just called up my editor yesterday. We had a big story meeting. And at the end of the story meeting, I called him back. He's in Spain, actually. And I was like, I forgot to tell you, I want to do this piece where we research what happened with churros in New York City, that they went from being a Mexican-only food that then they became a food sold by Ecuadorians on the street. Ecuador no tiene churros. Now, so I'm like, so let's do a mini documentary about qué pasó con los churros that they became. What happened there?
We would watch it. I always grew up eating churros, and my dad's Cuban, so he would always say, oh, let's go get churros. And I was like, oh, it's Cuban food. But now that I think about it, now that you mention it,
actually, when I told this to my Spanish, because le dije, para mí los churros son de México, del Morro de Letrán, downtown Mexico. And he was like, churros are from Spain. Oh, he just threw some shade. It's true. Churros come from Spain. So that will lead us. That will lead us back. I know. It's so cool.
Yes.
See, the documentary gets even more interesting.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I saw that you appeared in the show Finding Your Roots, which I believe comes out on April 2021.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel to learn about your ancestry and a history that is often viewed as so abstract or so foreign to others?
Oh, it was like pretty extraordinary. It was like dreamy. The things that I've learned, I can't talk about yet because they're going to be revealed. I just feel like right now I'm so busy doing this project with the book, but that's something that was sparked in me, which is that I really have to do this internal kind of spiritual work that actually is also journalistically. Like, for example, Cuba came up and Henry Louis Gates said, under normal circumstances, we would have been able to go to Cuba and they have so many records. He said, but because of the pandemic, everything is shut down. You can't get into the libraries. And so just right there's a door that's open that I'm like, okay, I have to go and find out what happened with my family that was living there. ¿Qué es esto? So there was a lot that I think it's making me feel like I have some spiritual healing and ancestral work that can actually help root me even more.
Yes. Wow, that's so amazing. It would be an absolute dream of mine.
It was my dream. It was a total dream and it came true.
That's awesome. And I know for a lot of first generations Americans, better said, who would sort of have like that lost touch from their heritage. So I wanted to ask you, why is it important that we acknowledge our history and heritage?
Because it gives us a sense of how we fit into all of this. And that really helps. I mean, it doesn't answer everything. But, today I was actually writing about my first protest. This is for the new book. And I just wrote, I was like, I was going to protests in the early 1970s. And what we need to understand is that protest that I was going to that was tied to civil rights with Martin Luther King, et cetera, actually goes all the way back to the first day that the first enslaved African person was brought to this land. That's when the fight for justice began, because the injustice, in relation to Black Lives Matter, of course, because the original sin may have been slavery, but the first sin was genocide against the indigenous people. So we have to understand that there's this historical tie. And when I was able to understand, like Frederick Douglass, I was like, okay, so my role as a Mexican-born journalist in the United States actually matters. What I'm doing, how I'm telling you, it matters within the history of this country. And then there's just the fun of the personal history, finding out your own story, because then you realize that, you're different from everybody else, and also you're not so different.
Right. Beautiful answer. Thank you. And switching gears now, how do you combat anxiety in your personal and or workplace?
I meditate. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I just posted today 555 days straight. So that's what I do. And I breathe.
Meditation has so many benefits. Oh my gosh. So what inspired you to launch the Futuro Media Group?
Well, actually, what inspired me was when somebody told me that I needed to wait. They were like, oh, we think you're great, but, we need you to wait to come back for a job when one of these old white guys dies. And I just got into the subway and I was like, I can't wait. I just cannot wait. And so that negative experience was the thing that just said, okay, dale pa allá.
Yeah. No waiting. Just go ahead and do it. So who inspires you?
Oh, there are so many really people who inspire me and women who inspire me. Of course, my mom. Badass, my sister, who I'm actually writing about, the original badass in the family. And I feel a lot of inspiration from the younger women who I'm seeing on social media, who are owning their own voices and telling their own stories. Mm-hmm. So I'm inspired by an older generation that doesn't give up, like Rita Moreno, who I actually know, and Dolores Huerta, who I actually know, and that they don't give up. But I'm also inspired by this younger generation that is also just finding their way. And I think of Chiara Alegria Hughes, who wrote the screenplay for In the Heights and wrote the play In the Heights, and how she just started telling her stories. So I'm very inspired. And then by young women like you and Latinitas, where it's just like, it's happening.
Yeah, I find a lot of my inspiration from you, from older generations, from my family members also. The women are so strong. So that really fuels me also. So to our final question, what is your personal philosophy?
I think in a personal, I hope that I try to find joy. That's very personal for me to kind of just try. But I think that if you ask me like a personal philosophy related to my work, it would be accountability and just not letting things slide, and always representing a los que no les dan posibilidad de tener su voz. I don't like to say that people are voiceless because they're voiceless. It's whether or not they're actually being heard. So that would be that personal philosophy.
Thank you again. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It was an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
If you're interested in pursuing a career in media, make sure to visit us at latinitasmagazine.org for more information. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of 20 Questions With. We'll see you next time.